comprehensively and thoroughly and robustly. And that is the way the Senate should go. As to the decision at the end, that is left to the House sitting in plenary or otherwise. So there should be no doubt about that, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Senator Wambua.
I thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I also want to join you in wishing my colleagues and yourself a Happy New Year 2022 as we commence the final leg of this session of the Senate. I hope that, Mr. Speaker, we will engage in a manner that instills confidence among the Kenyan population. Mr. Speaker, on that bill, yes, it is true that it's just been read the first time. Mr. Speaker, at times talk is cheap. Many times we refer to ourselves as the upper house. Mr. Speaker, an opportunity has presented itself to us through this bill that we must demonstrate to this country that indeed we are the upper house. Mr. Speaker, and this bill then follows the due process, public participation, sufficient time for people to ventilate on this bill. Mr. Speaker, how I wish and pray that each and every senator who will get an opportunity to contribute to this bill would demonstrate to this country and this world that indeed the Senate is the upper house. Mr. Speaker, I thank you.
Senator Chararge.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I also was this the year. Number two, Mr. Speaker, I think I want to agree with everybody that it is very important that we rise above what we saw in the National Assembly by ensuring that we have and follow the Constitution as provided for, and ensure that all Kenyans, Mr. Speaker, have an opportunity of interacting, because we know under Article 118 of the Constitution, one of the key processes of legislation is to ensure that we have a public participation. And I want to thank the minority leader for assuring us that under the Senate Business Committee, they have assured us that this bill shall ensure that it leads to the full life of that is required for legislative process, Mr. Speaker. Secondly, Mr. Speaker, and finally, I hope, Mr. Speaker, by the time either we come for the special sitting to debate, or even when the session of the House begins, the committee of JALANGO shall ensure that we get the committee report early enough, so that when we are having a robust debate on the floor of the House, Mr. Speaker, the position, because the committee is part of the Senate and would really want to look at the report. And I hope, Mr. Speaker, the committee of JALANGO made us proud when they did a report on the BBI document before it came to the House. So I hope when that report comes up, Mr. Speaker, it's sure that it is ready in time, so that our colleagues, Mr. Speaker, shall interact and ensure we participate properly, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, I hope this House will not be a conveyor belt. I hope we should, through tooth and comb, to ensure that we go through the entire amendment bill and ensure that we give Kenyans opportunity. Mr. Speaker, I hope also colleagues who will have amendments, like some of us, Mr. Speaker, will have an opportunity of also having time to be able, at the committee of the whole, to give their input. Otherwise, Mr. Speaker, I hope to see this through. Let us give Kenyans what is legal, what the constitutional provides for, Mr. Speaker, so that Kenyans can steer the Senate, because now everybody is watching to the Senate, and I hope we'll rise beyond our political interests and give Kenyans the best. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Kajwang Moses.
Mr. Speaker, I also join my colleagues to wish you and the entire House a Happy New Year. Indeed, I hope it's going to be a Happy New Year, and I hope that many of our colleagues will be back in this House before the year closes. Mr. Speaker, On the point of order raised by Senator Murkomen, he probably is not just seeking your assurance to the House. He's seeking the assurance of this House to the nation, that we are going to rise to the occasion, we are going to live to the expectation, and that will surely be the upper house. Mr. Speaker, history is there, and history shows that whenever there was a crisis in this nation, this House has always risen to the occasion. In the last Parliament, around the same time, we were debating the election amendment laws, Mr. Speaker, and you do recall that there was a lot of acrimony that accompanied the consideration of that bill in the other House and outside there. Mr. Speaker, at that time, it was senators, and I do recall it was Senator Orengo and Senator who is now governor for Meru, Governor Kiraitu Murungi, who led a bipartisan team, who led a team that included Senator Murkomen, included Senator Mutula Kilonzo. So this House has risen to the occasion in the past, and there's no reason why it should not rise to the occasion this time. Mr. Speaker, another example is the BBI debate. Mr. Speaker, we are proud that this House has got a Justice and Legal Affairs Committee chaired by the Senator for Nyamira. Mr. Speaker, the Justice and Legal Affairs Committee told this House, especially people like Senator Kajwang here, they told us things that we didn't want to hear. They told us that some things were unconstitutional. And we told them that, fine, this is not a court of law, this is a political contest. They were vindicated by the courts of law. So I want to encourage the Justice and Legal Affairs Committee, speak the truth. Tell this House the truth, but let us make the considerations, let us make the decisions, because ultimately this is a House that makes political decisions. Mr. Speaker, as I finalize, I take note that because of the Christmas break, you gave directions that committees should be suspended to give some time for the clerks and secretariat and senators to reconnect with the electorate. But Mr. Speaker, I want to beg your indulgence that as we speak, the people that I represent, the people who live on the islands of Lake Victoria, are suffering because the national government has banned the operations of the private ferry service provider that plies Mfangano Island, Takawiri, and Luanda Kotieno in Senator James Orengo's county. Mr. Speaker, this is causing untold suffering. I have not known how to deal with this matter since the Roads Committee is a window of a week or two to call the CS for transport and infrastructure.
That will do the right thing. I'm going to reassure Kenyans that from where I sit, this House will do the right thing, because if each and every one of us decides and commits to doing the right thing, there's no reason to hope. Every reason to just do it. And from where I sit, I would like to reassure the people of Isiolo, the people of this country, that we will be mandated and that this House will do the right thing. Mr. Speaker, looking at the order paper today, we have several bills. This bill, while very important and topical at this time of the elections, is not any different from all the other laws this House makes for this country. This House has been making laws to the best of its ability with every constitutional requirement ticked off on the box. So to insinuate or to say that this bill should be done this way and that way, and yet there are so many other bills on which we are not, because this touches us, I reassure Kenyans that anything that we do as this House, we will follow the due process as per the constitution of our country. I would like to also reassure reassure ourselves that we are not hoping, we are going to do what is constitutional, what is right, and what will give Kenyans the confidence that this House is indeed an upper house. I submit, Mr. Speaker, and I look forward to working on this and doing the right thing with it. Thank you.
Senator Wetangula. And if you keep them short, you will give an opportunity to many more people.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to join you in wishing all colleagues a Happy New Year. Make one or two very brief comments on this issue before the House. Mr. Speaker, I think you are a very lucky speaker because there is no time you have ever wished to come to your chair with a helmet. Because this is a House where dignity and with the respect that this House carries. Mr. Speaker, seeing what we saw in the lower house as this bill was being debated, it made some of us chill. We chilled because, Mr. Speaker, there is no single member that is legislating for himself or his party or his region. We are legislating for the country. And every bill we pass must be a bill that makes this country a better place to do our politics and to do anything that we need to do within the law. So as we start the process of this bill, Mr. Speaker, I appeal that one, we are not in a dash, there is no truncating of the process, so that due process is taken, public participation is required under the Constitution on what they think of the content of the bill, and that members of this House will debate it freely, fairly, and pass a law for posterity, not for short-term fixes. Mr. Speaker, as I finish, I want to urge that we live to what we have always said. This is a house of reason, a house of senior members of our society that see any disagreement on matters of principle as a discourse in debate, not as an affront to each other. Mr. Speaker, I was appalled to see in the National Assembly a member of parliament beckoning another to come closer to him and then physically assaulted him very viciously, as if they were at war, Mr. Speaker. And the scenes we saw, Mr. Speaker, the TVs were juxtaposing violent scenes in the Kenyan parliament and violent scenes in notoriously violent parliaments of Korea, of Italy, and Somalia. It is a shame, Mr. Speaker, that we can reduce ourselves to that level. I remember, Mr. Speaker, and I salute the distinguished nominated senator from Ruiru. When one time I said something that offended him, he became very livid, but later followed me and said, look, I realized that being livid on the floor of the Senate doesn't help anybody because nobody was interested in my rage. There's a colleague here who has told Mr. Speaker in the National Assembly, he used to be notorious for grabbing the mess. He came here and one time he contemplated that and he saw that nobody was interested in that kind of behavior. Yes, so this House, Mr. Speaker, must live to this level of dignity and give the country a law that the country is waiting for. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I congratulate each and every of the senators for shedding off some of their ugly past and remain distinguished senators of this House of Parliament.
Senator Kimani wa Matangi.
Mr. Speaker, Happy New Year, and Happy New Year to all my colleagues. And I take the opportunity, Mr. Speaker, to wish all my colleagues a very prosperous and happy 2022. And because it's going to be a short one, Mr. Speaker, I believe that we'll make the most and best value of it for the few months that we're going to be here. Mr. Speaker, I happened to have come across a schedule that was done by the chairperson of JALANGO, somewhere in a sharing that we did. This by the chairperson, Mr. Speaker. Because I saw in that schedule, it spans all the way from the 13th, Mr. Speaker, all the way up to the report here. Any interested group, I believe they can take the advantage of that time and bring their views here, Mr. Speaker. On the other hand, Mr. Speaker, I've had an opportunity to have a discussion with many members of the public who have been curious as to what has been happening about this bill. And part of the big question that has been on the Kenyans' minds is, Mr. Speaker, why were people fighting? If you asked members of the public, do they really understand why people are boxing? Very few people understand such drama is created around a piece of legislation that is before the House. Members of the public get anxious. But unfortunately, this time, that anxiety could not be justified by reasons that would make members of the public follow. And the reason I say that, Mr. Speaker, is because members of the public now are happy that this bill is before the Senate, because when it comes to the Senate, they have an opportunity to now contextualize and understand what are the real issues. Because here, if there is one thing that is clear to everybody in this country, is that this House has discharged itself in the manner that we conduct our business. That when that kind of law comes here, people will be able to understand what the law is all about, Mr. Speaker. A few days, Mr. Speaker, when the leader of the majority in the National Assembly was on national TV, and he was answering questions from one of the anchors, and he was asked, so from here, what happened to the bill? And I was amazed. You know, he made a comment, and he said, we have now finished with the bill, but unfortunately, it is going to the Senate. And you know, I was aching to get an opportunity to understand from the leader of the majority in the National Assembly, why does he think it is unfortunate? Because here, the bill is coming to the Senate. If there is one thing that is, maybe I would only imagine that he made that kind of comment out of maybe context or probably a word that slipped off his mouth, Mr. Speaker, because when the bill comes here, then we are sure that the bill will get justice. Mr. Speaker, as a winder,